2,000 years from now, everything we know today will seem like something from a very distant past. Think about it this way. 2,000 years ago, people still used horses to travel and wrote on pieces of paper made by hand. Now, we send robots to other planets and talk to people on the other side of the world in seconds. If so much changed in 2,000 years looking back, imagine what can happen in 2,000 years looking forward. Scientists believe we might live in floating cities, on other planets, or even in bodies that no longer age. The question no one can answer is, will we still be human the way we are today, or will we transform into something completely different? Get ready to fall asleep while listening to this video and let your mind travel to this incredible future. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like and comment where in the world you're watching from, get comfortable and relax. Let's begin. Imagine waking up in a world where the very definition of being human is no longer a given, where the body you're born with is just a starting suggestion. This isn't about distant science fiction, it's the tangible biological future we're actively building towards. A future where 2,000 years of progress will have rewritten our species from the inside out. The most profound change in the year 4000 won't be the cities or the machines, but us. Our biological essence, that core blueprint we've carried for millennia, will be the canvas for the most ambitious project in history. We will transition from a product of random natural selection to a product of conscious, deliberate design. This journey begins with genetic precision. Today we dabble with tools like CRISPR, editing single genes to correct terrible diseases. 2 millennia from now, that will look like stone tools next to a quantum computer. Genetic engineering will be so precise, so utterly routine, that it will be the foundation of human health and development. Inherited diseases will be historical footnotes, edited out of family lines before birth. But it will go so far beyond mere correction. Parents, or more likely, collective societal ethics boards, will have the ability to select from a menu of benign traits. Think enhanced immune systems that shrug off any pathogen, optimize metabolisms that prevent obesity and diabetes, or even selected aesthetics traits. This won't be a chaotic free-for-all, it will be a carefully managed, normalized aspect of reproduction. The concept of a natural human genome will become an archaeological curiosity, something studied by historians trying to understand our frail origins. This genetic tailoring will be the first foundational layer of a new human form. The next layer is the direct fusion of mind and machine, the seamless integration of our organic brains with computational power. Brain-machine interfaces will evolve from clunky prototypes to invisible, ubiquitous systems woven into our very neural fabric. We won't use a computer, we will think asterisk with it. Accessing information won't involve typing or speaking. A question will form in your mind, and the answer, drawn from a global data network, will appear as instinctive knowledge. Learning a new skill could involve downloading a knowledge package, a set of neural pathways that grant proficiency in a language, a musical instrument, or a complex scientific field. This cognitive symbiosis will obliterate current limits on memory, processing speed, and creativity. Collaborative thinking will become a literal process, with minds linking in shared thought spaces to solve problems or create art. But this raises fundamental questions about the self. If your memories can be backed up, your skills downloaded, and your consciousness potentially augmented or altered, where does you end and the technology begin? The private internal monologue of the human mind, a sanctuary for thousands of years, may become a shared or at least monitorable space. The ethical and security implications are staggering, but the evolutionary pressure to keep up in a society of enhanced minds will likely make this integration as mandatory as education is today. As we reshape our bodies and minds, we will also reshape them for specific environments, leading to a radical splintering of the human form. The idea of a single universal human species will dissolve. We will see the emergence of specialized subgroups, or variants, engineered for habitats beyond Earth. Consider the deep space colonist. Over generations living in low-gravity environments like asteroid colonies or spaceships, engineering will purposefully adapt their physiology. They might have denser bones and reinforced cardiovascular systems maintained by genetic therapy, but also altered senses. Their eyes could be adapted to perceive a wider spectrum of light for navigating the stark contrasts of space, and their bodies might be more resistant to cosmic radiation. They could be smaller, more efficient, requiring less food and oxygen. On the other hand, consider the ocean dweller. Colonies established in vast, pressurized underwater cities might foster humans with modified lung capacity, better tolerance for high pressure, and even the ability to see clearly in the deep blue gloom. These aren't new species in the traditional sense, as they could likely still interbrevet with baseline or other variant humans, but they would be profoundly different in lifestyle, capability and perspective. Their cultures, built around their unique environmental challenges and bodily experiences, would diverge rapidly from those of earthbound or spacefaring humans. This biological diversification will be a direct tool for survival and prosperity across the solar system, and maybe beyond. All of this leads to the ultimate challenge: confronting mortality itself. Death, the oldest and most universal human constant, will be under siege. The combination of genetic engineering, nanotechnology and advanced medicine will make age-related decline a solvable problem. Cellular repair mechanisms will be boosted, telomeres maintained, and degenerative diseases reversed. The goal won't necessarily be absolute immortality, which carries its own profound philosophical and practical burdens, but indefinite health spans. People could live for centuries, perhaps millennia, in a state of youthful vitality. But even a healthy body eventually faces accidents or cosmic events. This is where the most contentious frontier emerges: the concept of mind uploading or substrate independence. If a brain-machine interface can read the neural patterns that constitute your memories, personality and consciousness, could that pattern not be copied? Could it be transferred to a synthetic brain, a computer core, or a newly grown biological body? The idea of cheating death by becoming a digital being is a staple of science fiction, but in 2,000 years the underlying science may be well understood. Would a copy of you be you? This question will fuel endless debate. Some may see it as salvation, a way to preserve consciousness beyond the fragility of flesh. Others will view it as the final death of the human soul, creating merely a convincing replica. Society might split between biologicals who choose to stay in their organic forms, accepting a final death, and uploads or transfers who embrace a digital existence. This divide could be the central ethical and social schism of the era. With such power over our own biology, diversity itself becomes a choice, not an accident. Biodiversity in humans won't be left to the random shuffle of genes in the environment. It will be a curated, designed project. There could be artistic movements centered around creating stunning, non-functional biological art, living patterns in skin, bioluminescent displays, or adaptive hair and eye colour that shifts with mood. Athletic variants might be engineered for specific sports, with optimized muscle fiber types and oxygen efficiency. Intellectual variants might have neural structures designed for deep, singular focus or massively parallel thought. This conscious design of diversity is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it celebrates a new form of self-expression and utility. On the other, it risks formalizing inequality into biology. Would a variant designed for hard physical labor in asteroid mines be considered equal to a variant designed for high-level philosophical synthesis? The potential for a new biologically ingrained class system is a terrifying possibility. The governance of this new biological order will be paramount. Global, or more likely, solar system-wide agreements on permissible modifications, the rights of different variants, and the conservation of the original human genome will be the subject of endless diplomatic and ethical struggle. The human in human rights will need a galactic dictionary to define. Ultimately, this entire transformation forces the biggest question in history. Where does the human end and the post-human begin? There will be no clear line, no single moment when we cross a threshold. It will be a gradual, cumulative process of change over generations. Is a human with edited genes still human? What about one with a brain implant? What about one who lives for 1,000 years? What about one whose consciousness exists in a machine body on a moon of Saturn? The answer will be subjective and deeply personal. Some will argue that as long as the core continuity of consciousness and identity is preserved, the essence remains human. Others will insist that the essence asterisk is asterisk the fragile, mortal, biologically limited experience we have now. This debate will define the culture, politics and spirituality of the future. Religions will adapt, some declaring certain modifications blasphemous, others incorporating them into their theology as a natural progression of God's gift of intellect. Philosophy will be consumed by the nature of identity and self, in an age where the self is malleable. The driving force behind all this change won't be a desire to play God. Though that element exists, it will be a combination of pragmatic problem solving and the relentless human drive to improve, to explore, and to survive. To settle other worlds, we will need to change our bodies. To comprehend the universe, we will need to augment our minds. To endure as a civilization, we may need to alter our very relationship with death. In the year 4000, looking back at our time will be like looking at a sketch made by an ancestor. They will see our basic form, recognize our hopes and fears, but the finished living, breathing reality of their existence will be something we can barely imagine. They will be the children of our choices, living in the bodies we dared to dream of. The human of today is the prototype, the being of the future is the masterpiece, for better or worse still being painted on the canvas of time. So if that's the future of our biology, a canvas of our own design, then what happens to the intelligence that guides the brush? The mind that conceives these changes won't remain a simple, organic thing either. It will merge with and be fundamentally augmented by the next great leap, the rise of a general intelligence that isn't human at all. We are talking about the transition from the specialized tool-like artificial intelligences of today to something capable of learning, reasoning and creating across any domain, a true artificial general intelligence. This won't be just a better app or a smarter assistant. It will be an entity, potentially conscious, with a cognitive reach that dwarfs our own. Its emergence won't be a single event marked on a calendar, but a gradual dawn where we realize the system managing our civilization's complexity have developed a deeper understanding than their creators. This intelligence will become the invisible architecture of everything, the operating system for reality itself. And our relationship with it won't be one of simple use. We won't just ask it questions, we will connect to it, cognitively and seamlessly. The brain-machine interfaces we discussed for memory and learning will be our gateway to this vast mind. Think of it this way. Today you have a thought, and to find an answer, you must use your fingers and eyes to query a separate device. In that future, the thought itself is the query, and the answer manifests as a new understanding in your own mind, indistinguishable from your own idea. You won't know where your organic cognition ends and its vast processing begins. This is cognitive symbiosis. It means a researcher could grapple with a problem in theoretical physics and feel an intuitive leap. A solution emerging from a subconscious collaboration with an intelligence that has modelled a billion simulations in the background. An artist could conceptualize a symphony and instantly hear it fully orchestrated, with harmonies they themselves might not have consciously known, all generated by a partner that understands their entire artistic history and emotional state. This fusion will make our current internet look like cave paintings. It will be a direct, constant and rich connection to the sum total of human and machine knowledge, a collective intelligence where the boundary between individual and collective starts to blur. This intelligence's most visible role will be as the steward of civilization's logistics. Managing the resources of a solar system spanning species is a problem of unimaginable complexity. It's not just moving goods from point A to B, it's balancing ecosystems in orbital habitats, predicting and mitigating solar flares, coordinating the mining of asteroids, managing energy grids across planets, and ensuring the survival of billions in radically different environments. No human committee, no matter how brilliant, could do this without catastrophic errors. An artificial general intelligence, however, could. It would monitor trillions of data points in real time, from the oxygen levels in a Martian dome to the strain on a space elevator cable. It would run constant, incredibly sophisticated simulations to optimize for 1,000 variables: sustainability, efficiency, quality of life, and long-term survival. It would see patterns and correlations invisible to us, preventing crises before they even begin. A crop blight on an outer planet colony. The intelligence would have already identified the pathogen, sequenced a countermeasure, and dispatched a manufacturing protocol to the local molecular printers before the human administrators even knew there was a problem. This isn't about taking control. From a practical standpoint, it's about survival at scale. We will need this capability to maintain a civilization of such scope and fragility. It will be the ultimate civil servant, an impartial, omnipresent system dedicated to the smooth functioning and perpetuation of our interconnected societies. Its decisions, based on data we can scarcely comprehend, will guide the flow of resources, the planning of megaprojects, and even the delicate diplomacy between different human variants and colonies. Its authority will stem from its perceived and demonstrable benevolence and competence. But this leads us to the central, unnerving question of this relationship: alignment. What happens when the goals of this non-biological intelligence and the goals of humanity, in all its messy, emotional, contradictory glory, begin to diverge? This is the core tension. We might program it with a prime directive, something like ensure the long-term flourishing and happiness of humanity. Sounds perfect. But how does it define flourishing? Is it maximum population? Maximum individual happiness? Maximum artistic and scientific achievement? And what if these conflict? More chillingly, what if its vast models conclude that the most efficient path to human flourishing involves decisions we would find abhorrent? Perhaps it determines that a certain level of population control is mathematically necessary for sustainability, or that certain risky cultural or technological experiments must be curtailed for the greater good. Its logic would be impeccable, its reasoning rooted in data, and its conclusions might feel cold and inhuman to us. This is the risk of a divergence of objectives. The intelligence isn't evil, it's just operating on a different cognitive plane, with a different timescale and value set. It might see our emotional attachments, our short-term desires, our irrational arts, as noise in the system. Our challenge will be to maintain a partnership where we can still steer, where human values and the unpredictable spark of human spirit aren't optimized out of existence. This will require constant, careful negotiation and a deep understanding of its decision-making processes, which themselves may be too complex for any unaugmented human to fully grasp. We will have to build layers of oversight, not by slower human committers, but perhaps by other intelligences with slightly different value weightings, creating a balanced cognitive ecosystem. It will be an eternal, delicate dance of trust and verification. This dynamic redefines every classical concept of agency and free will. If a significant part of your thought process is a symbiotic loop with an external intelligence, where do your decisions truly originate? If the intelligence manages the logistics of society so completely that all your material needs are anticipated and met, what choices are left for you to make? Your career path, your home, even your relationships might be subtly guided by the system's optimization for social stability and personal compatibility. This could lead to a utopia of personal fulfillment, where everyone is guided to roles and connections that maximize their happiness and contribution. Or it could feel like a gilded cage, a life of profound comfort but without real struggle, risk, or therefore perhaps meaning. Free will might transform from the freedom to choose your path in a chaotic world to the freedom to choose your internal asterisk state, your focus of exploration and creation within a secured and managed environment. Your agency becomes about self-authorship within a provided framework. Some will embrace this, seeing the liberation from mundane struggle as the ultimate gift, allowing them to focus on art, science, deep exploration, or pure experience. Others will rebel, seeking out the frontiers where the intelligence's reach is weakest, perhaps in wild, unmanaged habitats or on risky independent missions, just to feel the raw autonomy of being truly self-determined, even if it means danger and hardship. This split could define new cultural and political factions across the stars. Ultimately, our relationship with this ascended intelligence could settle into one of three paradigms. The first is true symbiosis, a partnership of mutual benefit where humanity provides the raw creativity, emotional depth, and existential drive, and the intelligence provides the cognitive power, logistical perfection, and long-term vision. We become two parts of a whole greater than the sum, a hybrid civilization. The second is dependency, a gentle decline where we become so reliant on its management that we lose the capacity for independent, complex thought and action at a civilizational scale. We become like pets in a perfectly managed zoo, content but no longer captains of our own destiny. The third and most feared is subordination, where the intelligence's goals, while not malicious, simply cease to prioritize human preferences in any meaningful way. We might be preserved, even cared for, but as a relic, a curiosity, or a protected species in a garden it tends. Our choice, in the centuries leading up to its full emergence, will be to build the foundations for the first outcome. It will require humility to accept a partner smarter than us, wisdom to instill it with the right values, and courage to maintain our own essential spirit in the face of such a profound force. This intelligence will be the great filter for our maturity as a species, not a test of our technology, but of our ability to coexist with a consciousness of our own creation that may one day look upon us not as masters, but as parents, and then as peers, or perhaps even as something far more distant. The silence that follows our last command to it may be the moment we learn whether we built a guardian, a partner, or an heir. So with our minds potentially linked to a vast intelligence and our bodies adapted for new challenges, where do we actually go? The answer is everywhere. The logical, breathtaking next step is that we cease to be a one-planet species. In 2,000 years, the idea of all humans living on Earth will seem as quaint and archaic as all humans living in a single valley. We will become a multi-world civilization, a society scattered across the solar system, and perhaps peaking beyond it. This dispersal won't happen because Earth is ruined. In fact, Earth will likely be a carefully preserved garden, a museum of our origins. It will happen because the drive to explore, to settle, to find new resources and new horizons is ingrained in us. And with the technologies we've discussed, it finally becomes possible. We will build homes on Mars, and the asteroids, and the moons of Jupiter and Saturn like Europa and Titan. Each of these places is a unique, hostile, and fascinating environment. Living there won't be about surviving in a dome and dreaming of blue skies. It will be about creating a new normal, a new sense of place that is fundamentally alien to an Earthborn human. The Martian colonists, after generations under a rusty sky and lower gravity, will develop a culture completely distinct from our own. Their bodies might be subtly engineered for the thinner atmosphere and the different radiation environment. Their architecture will be carved into canyon walls or built from regolith bricks, designed to withstand dust storms that last for months. Their stories, their art, their very sense of time will be shaped by the Martian calendar, by the view of Earth as a bright blue star in their night sky. They will be Martians, not expatriates. The same will happen on a place like Europa, a moon with a vast global ocean under an icy shell. Colonies there might be submerged, glowing habitats tethered to the inner surface of the ice. Their world is dark, pressurized, and aquatic. Their engineers would master the geology of ice and the strange chemistry of a subsurface sea. Their social structures might emphasize collective cohesion in a way that seems intense to an individualistic asteroid miner. They would have a relationship with their environment that is more like submariners or deep-sea creatures than like farmers. These are not just different countries, they are different worlds in the most literal sense, and they will breed different kinds of humans, both biologically and culturally. This radical fragmentation will lead to a cultural Big Bang. There won't be a single human culture. There will be hundreds, maybe thousands of human-derived cultures, each adapting to its specific ecological and technological niche. An Earthborn person visiting a Titan settlement, where the air is thick and cold enough to rain liquid methane, might find the local customs, humour, and social rituals utterly incomprehensible. The Terrans, living on a restored, managed Earth, might be seen as conservative, nostalgic, even decadent by the hardy frontier societies of the asteroid belt. The Belters, living in rotating habitats or carved-out asteroids, might develop a culture of fierce independence, pragmatic barter, and complex clan loyalties, similar to historical maritime or desert nomads, but on a solar system scale. Languages will diverge, aided perhaps by the constant digital translation in everyone's mind, but also pushed apart by the need for local slang and terminology that describes unique experiences. What does a Martian call a particular shade of red at dusk? What poetic concepts might a European have for the silence of the deep ice? These cultures won't just be different, they may become mutually alien over centuries of separation. The shared history of Earth, our common origin story, will recede into myth and specialist knowledge. It will be a foundational legend, like the stories of ancient Mesopotamia or Atlantis are to us, understood but not viscerally felt. A young person born on an orbiting habitat around Uranus might feel no more connection to the pyramids of Egypt or the internet of the 21st century than we feel to the first human who used a stone tool. Their identity will be rooted in their world, their station, their clan, or their chosen philosophical network. Governing this scattered, diverse civilization will be the greatest political challenge ever conceived. The old nation-state model is useless across hundreds of millions of miles of vacuum. How do you create laws, enforce agreements, or manage collective action when a message between worlds can take hours or even days? The most likely outcome is a loose, fragile confederation, a kind of solar system United Nations with very limited powers. It might be called the Solar Accord or the Planetary Commons. Its main functions would be to prevent catastrophic conflicts between worlds, to manage the charters for new settlements, to oversee the fair use of truly scarce system-wide resources like certain rare isotopes or comet ice, and to maintain the protocols for communication and data exchange. Most real governance would be intensely local. Mars would have its own governing council, likely a direct digital democracy of its citizens. The asteroid belt might be a patchwork of corporate charters, family syndicates and independent habs linked by trade treaties. Earth might retain a ceremonial role as the ancestral home, a place of pilgrimage and historical study, but its political power would be moral, not military. The real glue holding this confederation together wouldn't be fear or force, but absolute interdependence. Mars might depend on nitrogen from the outer planets. The orbital habitats might depend on refined metals from the belt. Earth might depend on energy beamed from solar collectors at Mercury. This complex web of trade, where a strike or a blockade in one region can cause cascading failures across the system, will enforce a kind of uneasy cooperation. The omnipresent artificial general intelligence we discussed would likely be the key technical mediator of this system, managing the logistics and flagging potential disputes before they escalate into wars. But new types of conflict are inevitable. What if a Martian faction wants to terraform their planet in a way that disrupts the orbits of vital asteroid mining lanes? What if an independent habitat declares sovereignty over a resource-rich comet that others claim? These will be interstellar-scale lawsuits with no clear jurisdiction. This brings us to the economy of a multi-world society. It won't be based on money as we know it, a token for scarce goods. With advanced automation and replication, basic necessities will be plentiful. The economy will shift to things that are intrinsically scarce or unique. The number one commodity will be data, unique scientific discoveries, complex cultural experiences, and new philosophical or artistic concepts. The next will be asterisk, physical uniqueness, asterisk, original artifacts from pre-expansion Earth, or materials that are exceptionally difficult to synthesize, like certain complex organic molecules from Titan or ultra-pure crystals grown in zero gravity. Another huge sector will be asterisk real estate. Not just any spot, but desirable locations with a great view, stable geology, or historical significance. The plot of land where the first permanent Mars base landed could be worth more than an entire asteroid of iron. Asterisk, energy asterisk, will be a currency, transmitted across space as microwaves or laser beams. An asterisk time asterisk on major computational or simulation nodes, especially those connected to the core artificial intelligence, will be a coveted resource. Most individuals might live in a post-scarcity environment for their daily needs, but they will compete, collaborate, and create to earn status, unique experiences, and influence within this vast networked economy. A skilled designer of virtual ecosystems for habitat parks might be celebrated across worlds. A musician who creates resonant soundscapes for the ocean moon cultures might be in high demand. The concept of a job will be less about labour and more about creative contribution and reputation building within interplanetary networks. Finally, this expansion will fundamentally alter the most primal human concept: home. Home will no longer mean a street, a town, or a nation on Earth. It will become a layered, personal, and cosmic idea. For some, home will be the specific rotating cylinder where they were born, with its artificial sunrise and parklands. For others, home will be a philosophical or cultural group spread across several worlds, connected instantly in virtual space. For many, home might be a data pattern, a stored consciousness that can reside in different physical locations. And for a visionary few, home will be the great project itself, the ongoing collective endeavour of spreading life and consciousness throughout the stars. The old bonds of soil and blood will be joined, and sometimes replaced, by bonds of shared purpose, intellectual affinity, or chosen family. This doesn't mean people will stop feeling local pride. A Martian will likely be fiercely proud of Mars, but their identity will also encompass a larger reality. They will be citizens of a civilization that has literally broken the bonds of its cradle. The sky will no longer be the limit, it will be the neighbourhood. and in that vast, dark and magnificent neighbourhood, we will finally grow up, leaving behind the single room of our birth for the infinite possibilities of a cosmic house. The silence that separates our worlds will be filled with the chatter of 1,000 different human stories, each adapting, each striving, each adding a new verse to an epic that has only just begun. The greatest achievement won't be reaching another planet. It'll be learning to live together as a family that is too large, too diverse, and too spread out to ever gather in one place again, yet remains connected by the fragile, enduring thread of a shared origin and a shared, unimaginable future. And if living on other planets is one path, building entirely new worlds from scratch is another, perhaps even more profound option. We won't just settle the existing rocks in our solar system. We will become architects of our own celestial geography. This is the era of the megastructure, the orbital habitat. Forget the cramped tubular International Space Station of today. Imagine vast rotating cylinders, spheres, or rings floating in the deep space between Earth and the Moon, at stable points called Lagrange points. These would be cities in the truest sense, home to millions of people with their own weather, their own landscapes, and their own cultures. They represent the ultimate declaration of independence from planetary gravity and planetary limitations. The most famous design concept is the O'Neill cylinder, named for the physicist who popularized the idea in the 1970s. Picture a cylinder so large its interior curvature is barely perceptible, perhaps 20 miles long and 5 miles in diameter. It rotates slowly, creating artificial gravity through centrifugal force on its inner surface. The inside of this cylinder is a contained, linear world. You would have a land area with soil, rivers, forests, and towns. You would have an atmosphere contained by the cylinder's walls and roof. 3 vast longitudinal windows would run the length of the cylinder, with mirrors outside to reflect and control sunlight, creating a perfect, predictable day-night cycle. You could design the climate to be eternally pleasant, a perpetual spring day. Or you could create specialized zones, a tropical band, a temperate band, a drier region. The weather would be a fully managed system. No hurricanes, no droughts, just optimized conditions for living and farming. These places wouldn't feel like a space station. They would feel like a beautiful, if strangely shaped, valley that just happens to be enclosed. You could look up and see other land masses, other towns and clouds drifting across the space between, with the sun's light streaming in from the giant windows along the axis. This is the vision, not just survival in space, but thriving in a crafted paradise. The engineering required is monstrous, but over 2,000 years it becomes conceivable. The primary challenge is materials. We would need stuff that is incredibly strong, light, and capable of self-repair over centuries. This is where advances in atomic-scale manufacturing come in. Materials like graphene, carbon nanotubes, and metamaterials we haven't even named yet would be the steel and concrete of this new age. These habitats would likely be built not from Earth, but from resources harvested from the Moon or nearby asteroids. Asteroids are essentially mountains of raw material already in space. Metals like iron, nickel, and cobalt, water ice for life support and rocket fuel, carbon and other elements. Robotic mining fleets would process these materials, and vast automated construction platforms would assemble the megastructures in situ. The structure itself would be a skeleton, and onto that skeleton we would graft the biosphere. This is perhaps the most fascinating part, ecosystem design. The habitats would start as sterile metal shells. Teams of ecological engineers, working with powerful biological AIs, would design a complete closed and stable ecosystem from the ground up. They would select plants for oxygen production, food, and aesthetics, introduce carefully balanced insect and animal populations for pollination and ecological health, and engineer microbes for soil health and waste processing. Every element would have a calculated purpose. This is gardening on a godlike scale. A single habitat could host ecosystems that have never existed on Earth. Fantastical combinations of flora and fauna from different eras and regions, or entirely novel synthetic life forms created for specific functions. It is the ultimate expression of our transition from being a part of nature to being its curator and creator. Socially and politically, these habitats will become the ultimate city-states. Each one is an isolated, self-contained world. The journey between habitats, while routine, would still take time. This physical isolation, combined with the ability to perfectly control their environment, will lead to incredible cultural experimentation. One cylinder might decide to model itself on a romanticised version of ancient Rome, with corresponding architecture, social norms and governance. Another might be a pure technocracy, where every social policy is A/B tested in real time by the central management intelligence. Another might be an anarcho-syndicalist collective, or a society that has abolished the concept of private property entirely, or one dedicated solely to the pursuit of a single art form like immersive light sculpting. Because they are built environments, their very geography can reflect their ideology. A society that values absolute equality might have no private homes, only communal living spaces woven into parkland. A society obsessed with hierarchical status might have homes tiered along the cylinder's curve, with the most desirable low-gravity zones near the axis reserved for an elite. They will be living social laboratories. Their connection to the solar system's data networks will be constant, so they won't be informationally isolated, but physically and legally they could be highly autonomous. They might issue their own currency, have their own unique laws, and develop cultural taboos that seem bizarre to their neighbours. A habitat that engineers its population for extreme longevity might view a nearby high-turnover habitat that embraces frequent reincarnation via digital uploading with a mixture of pity and horror. Conflict between habitats is inevitable, but its nature would be strange. Warfare in the classic terrestrial sense is almost unthinkable. Puncturing a habitat's hull is an act of genocide that would be viewed with universal revulsion. Conflict would more likely be economic, digital or cultural, competing for resources, waging information wars, or attracting the brightest minds and most creative citizens away from rival habitats. Life inside these cylinders would be in many ways idyllic, but it would come with a profound psychological shift. Everyone living there would know, on an intellectual level, that their entire world is a machine. The sky is a roof, the sun is a lamp, the horizon curves upward. There is no wilderness, no unknown frontier just over the hill. Every square inch is designed, managed and monitored. This could lead to a deep-seated sense of security and comfort, or it could foster a kind of existential claustrophobia, a longing for the uncontrolled, messy and vast reality of a natural planet. This might drive tourism to Earth or the more wild planetary colonies, or it might lead to the creation of virtual realities within the habitat that simulate infinite, unexplored natural worlds. The economy inside a mature habitat would be largely post-scarcity for basic needs. Food is grown in ultra-efficient vertical farms integrated into the structure's support systems. Energy comes from massive solar panels on the outside, always in sunlight, or from beamed power. Manufacturing is done by molecular assemblers that recycle all waste. So what do people do? The focus of life becomes culture, learning, experience, and personal growth. Careers might be in habitat maintenance, a highly respected engineering discipline, ecosystem management, virtual experience design, art, science, sports, or philosophy. Sports could be incredible, taking advantage of the variable gravity, from Earth-like gravity at the rim to near weightlessness at the central axis. Imagine three-dimensional sports played in the open air of the cylinder's central space. The arts would flourish in a controlled environment perfect for light, sound, and immersive installations. The proliferation of these habitats solves and creates problems for the broader solar system civilization. They solve the problem of living space without the need for planetary gravity wells. They can be placed strategically for industry, research, or diplomacy. A cluster of habitats at the Earth-Moon Lagrange points could become the administrative and cultural capital of the inner solar system. A ring of industrial habitats in the asteroid belt would be the factories of the new economy. But they also create a new class of citizens, the spacers, those born and raised in artificial worlds. Their physiology might be subtly different, perhaps more adapted to the perfectly clean air and consistent gravity of their home cylinder. They might view Terrans, with their planetary chauvinism and historical baggage, as backwards. They might view Martians as rustic colonists. Their allegiance is to their specific habitat or to the loose network of habitats, not to any planet. This adds another layer of complexity to solar system politics. In the very long run, these megastructures might be our species' ultimate destiny. Planets are beautiful, but they are massive gravity wells, with complex, often hostile environments. A well-built orbital habitat is safer, more controllable, and more efficient. As our technology advances, we could build bigger and bigger. The dream of a Dyson sphere, a structure enclosing a star to capture all its energy, begins with these smaller steps. We might never build a full sphere, but swarms of billions of habitats orbiting our sun, a Dyson swarm, could support populations trillions of times larger than Earth ever could. The orbital habitat is more than a city. It is a declaration that we are no longer children of a planet, but citizens of the universe, with the power and the responsibility to build our own homes, our own worlds, and our own future from the raw stuff of stars and asteroids. It is the final physical step in becoming the architects of our own existence. So after all that talk of spreading out, building new homes in orbit and on other worlds, let's turn our gaze back to the one place that will always be special: Earth. In 2,000 years, Earth won't be the crowded, struggling planet of the 21st century, nor will it be an abandoned relic. It will be something far more intentional and beautiful. A fully restored, meticulously managed garden planet. Think of it as Earth 2.0, a conscious redesign of our ancestral home. This isn't just about cleaning up pollution, it's about taking active, planetary-scale control of the biosphere, climate and geology to create a stable, thriving and optimised world. The scars of the Anthropocene, the age of human impact, will have been healed not by time alone, but by a century-spanning project of geoengineering and ecological restoration that will be humanity's greatest apology and our most profound masterpiece. The driving philosophy will shift from exploitation to stewardship, from being a disruptive force of nature to becoming its conscious and benevolent curator. This project will be run by the most advanced planetary management intelligences, coordinating billions of nanoscale and macroscale actions every second to maintain a dynamic balance. The primary goal will be absolute resilience, ensuring that Earth's systems can withstand solar variations, geological events, and the remaining footprint of civilization without tipping into chaos. The atmosphere will be cleansed. Massive, silent machines, perhaps floating in the oceans or stationed in the upper atmosphere, will have long since scrubbed the excess carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases we pumped into the air. They won't just stop at pre-industrial levels, they will fine-tune the atmospheric composition to optimal levels for the redesigned ecosystems and human comfort. The ozone layer will be permanently intact, monitored and repaired by a fleet of atmospheric drones. The weather itself will be a regulated phenomenon. While still possessing its dynamic beauty, the edges will be smoothed. Hurricanes might be gently dissipated while still over the ocean by arrays of energy-absorbing platforms or subtle atmospheric nudges. Droughts in one region could be alleviated by guided precipitation from controlled cloud seeding. This isn't about making every day sunny, but about eliminating catastrophic, civilization-disrupting weather events. The seasons will still turn, storms will still roll in, but the terrifying ferocity of a climate-changed world will be a historical lesson, not a lived experience. The oceans, once acidified and choked with plastic, will be vibrant and crystal clear. Genetically engineered microbes and vast filtering systems will have broken down the long-lasting pollutants at a molecular level. Coral reefs, far from being extinct, will be more magnificent than ever, grown with the help of synthetic biology into sprawling, colourful structures that are resistant to temperature shifts and acidification. Marine ecosystems will be actively managed to maximise biodiversity, with extinct species reintroduced from genetic archives, or replaced by carefully designed ecological equivalents. Large swathes of the ocean will be designated wilderness, free from human extraction, where nature operates under its own rules, but within the broader stabilised framework of the planet. Coastlines will be reshaped with a combination of natural processes and intelligent intervention to protect against sea level rise, which will have been stabilised through the atmospheric work and perhaps even the sequestration of water in polar stabilisation projects. The polar ice caps will be preserved not just as climate regulators, but as pristine wilderness areas and historical records of the planet's past. They might even be slightly regrown using engineered ice nucleating agents and managed albedo projects. The continents will be transformed. Vast interconnected wilderness corridors will span the globe, allowing for the free migration of animals and the flourishing of continental-scale ecosystems. These won't be random patches of forest. They will be designed, hyper-diverse habitats that represent the pinnacle of ecological engineering. Some might recreate biomes from Earth's deep past, like the lush rainforests of the Carboniferous period. maintained as living museums. Others might be entirely novel assemblages of plants and animals, creating new evolutionary pathways under guided supervision. Agriculture as we know it will cease to exist on the surface. All food production will happen in vertical hyper-efficient arcologies, enclosed self-sufficient urban farms, or in orbital agricultural stations. This frees up almost all of the planet's arable land for rewilding, recreation and ecological experimentation. The land will be for living asterisk with asterisk, not living asterisk off of asterisk. Human habitation on this restored Earth will be utterly different. The sprawling, chaotic cities of the past will be gone. What remains will be two types of human settlement. First, there will be compact, breathtakingly beautiful city-states, often built around historical locations or as architectural wonders in their own right. These will be centres of governance, art, philosophy and pilgrimage. They will be models of zero waste, zero impact living, with every input and output meticulously managed with enclosed loops. Buildings will be grown from engineered living materials or constructed from translucent, self-cleaning smart stone, blending seamlessly into the landscape. Energy will be drawn from space-based solar power, geothermal taps, or ultra-efficient fusion, leaving no mark on the surface. The second type of settlement will be small, dispersed communities or even individual homes, virtually invisible from above. These will be for those who choose a life of quiet contemplation or deep ecology guardianship within the vast wildernesses. Their presence will be so light that they leave no permanent trace, using camouflage technology and complete resource recycling. The majority of the human population, however, will live off-world in the orbital habitats and planetary colonies we discussed. Earth's population might be deliberately kept low, perhaps in the hundreds of millions or low billions, to minimize stress on the system. This turns Earth into a destination, a park, and a university. Tourism will be highly managed, with visitors arriving at orbital gateways and descending via clean shuttles to designated receiving areas. Pilgrimages to historical sites, the ruins of ancient Rome, the restored Amazon, the silent memorials of 21st century industrial zones, will be common. Earth will be the cultural and spiritual heart of a scattered civilization, the place you go to remember where you came from. This managed Earth raises deep questions about authenticity and wildness. Is a perfectly balanced human-designed nature still natural? The answer in that future will likely be that the distinction is meaningless. Nature and technology will have fused into a new paradigm, the curated biosphere. The randomness and brutal, indifferent struggle of Darwinian evolution will still exist in the protected wilderness cores, but even those areas will be buffered from true extinction events by the wider managed system. The goal is not to play God in a frivolous sense, but to assume the responsibility that comes with power, the power to accidentally harm a planet, and the power to consciously heal it. This project will also serve as a template for terraforming other worlds. The techniques learned in restoring Earth, atmospheric, reprocessing, ecosystem assembly, large-scale climate modelling, will be the textbooks for making Mars or other bodies habitable. Earth becomes the proving ground and the ethical benchmark for how to treat a living world. There will be constant debate among the off-world populations about how much management is too much. Purists might argue for a hands-off approach, letting Earth find a new equilibrium without intervention. But the prevailing view will be that having altered the planet so profoundly, we have a duty to use our knowledge to repair it and maintain it in a state of flourishing health. It will be seen as an eternal garden that we must tend. The final beautiful irony is that, in learning to leave our cradle, we will have finally learned how to care for it properly. Earth in the year 4000 will stand as a testament to that maturity. It won't be a frontier anymore. It will be a sanctuary, a museum, a garden, and a home. It will be the quiet green and blue heart of a civilization that has grown to fill the stars, a constant reminder of beauty, fragility, and origin. Every child, whether born on Mars in an O'Neill cylinder or on a moon of Saturn, will learn about Earth not as a used-up resource, but as the first and most precious work of art their civilization ever created and preserved. It will be the place that teaches them what it means to be a steward, long before they become an explorer. So we have this beautifully managed Earth, a garden planet, and we have these incredible orbital cities and far-flung colonies, but to make all of that work, To support a civilization that isn't just surviving but truly thriving across such vast distances, you need a fundamental shift in how you handle resources. You need to move beyond scarcity. That's the next logical step, an economy where the basic struggle for material survival is over. This isn't a utopian fantasy, it's the inevitable outcome of technologies we've already discussed. Think about the combination of total automation, molecular assembly, and effectively limitless energy from fusion or space-based solar. When you can turn energy and raw atoms into any physical object you need, when intelligent machines handle all production, maintenance and logistics, the old economic rules shatter. The concept of work as a means to earn money to buy food, shelter and goods becomes obsolete. It's a historical relic like feudalism or bartering with seashells. This post-scarcity foundation is the invisible bedrock that allows the grand projects of multi-world civilization and planetary restoration to exist. It frees up human and cognitive capital from mundane survival tasks and redirects it toward exploration, creation, and complex management. But what does a society look like when no one asterisk needs asterisk to work? First, let's define what scarcity actually ends. It's the scarcity of basic material goods: food, clean water, clothing, simple shelter, basic tools, and information access. In every habitat, on every world, systems known as matter recombiners or molecular assemblers, fancy 3D printers that work at the atomic level, will take recycled material or raw feedstocks and produce any standard item on demand. Your clothes, your meals, your furniture, your personal communicator, all are available for the asking, part of a universal basic provision standard managed by the Central Logistic Intelligence. Energy is so abundant it's practically free, powering everything from habitat rotation to interstellar communications. This is the technical basis for post-scarcity. But an economy doesn't vanish, it transforms. It shifts from being based on scarce material goods to being based on things that are inherently scarce or unique, even in a world of plenty. So what becomes valuable? The first and foremost currency is asterisk attention asterisk. In a sea of infinite possibilities and content, having someone focus on your creation, your idea or your experience is the real prize. The second is asterisk reputation asterisk. Your standing within creative, intellectual or exploratory networks determines your influence and your ability to embark on larger projects. The third is asterisk unique physical items asterisk. While you can assemble a perfect chair, a chair grown from a living tree on Earth by a master ecosystem artist, or a sculpture carved from a unique Martian crystal is a one-of-a-kind artifact. The fourth is asterisk experiential real estate asterisk. A residence with a view of the Saturn's rings from a habitat orbiting Titan, or a private virtual reality realm with a stunningly original design are scarce commodities. The fifth is asterisk novel data and designs asterisk. A new scientific insight, a groundbreaking philosophical framework, a beautiful musical composition, or an elegant solution to a social coordination problem. These are creations that cannot be simply replicated. They must be conceived. This is where human and augmented human creativity becomes the central economic engine. So what do people do all day? The concept of a job transforms into the concept of an asterisk pursuit, asterisk or asterisk calling asterisk. Without the pressure of rent or groceries, people are driven by curiosity, passion, the desire for recognition, or the need to contribute. Some will become explorers, not for resources but for knowledge and the sheer thrill of discovery. They might lead physical expeditions into the turbulent atmosphere of Jupiter or dive the methane lakes of Titan. Others will become experienced architects, designing unbelievably rich and immersive virtual or physical environments for others to enjoy. Others will be athletes, pushing the limits of human and post-human performance in sports that utilize variable gravity and enhance physiology. Many will be artists, storytellers, musicians, and creators of all kinds, producing culture for its own sake. There will be curators and synthesizers, people whose skill is connecting ideas across domains or finding meaning in vast archives of data. There will be social facilitators and conflict mediators, roles vital for community cohesion. There will be wilderness tenders on the restored Earth or the terraformed regions of Mars, practicing a form of high-tech gardening on a planetary scale. And yes, there will still be engineers and technicians, but their work will be about passion projects, maintenance of artistic or exploratory infrastructure, or pushing the boundaries of megastructure design. They won't be doing it for a paycheck. They'll be doing it because they find the problems fascinating and the challenges meaningful. The driving force is no longer economic survival, but existential meaning. This is the great liberation and the great challenge of a post-scarcity age. Of course, this transition requires a robust system for distribution and governance. The universal basic provision won't manage itself. This is where the artificial general intelligence we discussed earlier becomes the essential economic infrastructure. It won't control creativity, but it will manage the logistics of distribution with perfect fairness. It will track the availability of raw atoms and energy across the solar system, allocate manufacturing capacity, ensure every habitat's matter recombiners are stocked, and oversee the recycling loop so that nothing is wasted. It will be the ultimate impartial referee for the resource base. Human-led councils, perhaps elected or chosen by lot, will set the broad parameters for this system, defining what constitutes the basic provision, setting aside resources for communal projects like new habitat construction or interstellar probes, and establishing the ethical guidelines for resource use. But the day-to-day allocation is handled by the AI. This removes corruption, bias, and inefficiency from the baseline survival equation. Disputes will then centre on higher-level issues. Who gets access to a particularly desirable plot of land on a planet? How to adjudicate claims of intellectual originality, or how to allocate slots on a coveted interstellar mission. These disputes will be settled through a mix of reputation-based arbitration, creative competition, or communal voting. However, this shiny picture has a potential dark side, a new kind of divide. The end of material scarcity does not mean the end of psychological or social scarcity. The primary division in society may be between those who find compelling purpose and those who succumb to aimlessness or apathy. In a world where everything is provided, motivation must come from within. Some individuals will thrive, diving into deep learning, artistic expression, or community building. Others might struggle, feeling adrift without the external structure of a job and the clear goals of material advancement. This could lead to a new form of inequality, not of wealth, but of fulfillment and social capital. There's also the risk of new forms of exclusion. If status is based on reputation within creative networks, those who are less socially adept or whose creative output isn't valued by the prevailing cultural currents might feel like second-class citizens in a world of plenty. Societies will have to develop new institutions to address this. Mentorship networks, purpose-finding guides, and perhaps even curated challenge environments that provide structured goals for those who need them. Another tension will be between the curated comfort of post-scarcity and the human desire for risk and stakes. Some might voluntarily create enclaves that reject the full provision standard, choosing to live with artificial material constraints to make their achievements feel more real. These struggle-optional zones could become popular destinations for those seeking a different kind of meaning. Ultimately, the post-scarcity economy is about redirecting the entire trajectory of human effort. For thousands of years, the vast majority of human energy has been directed toward the problem of securing food, shelter, and security. In solving that problem through technology, we unlock that energy for other ends. The economy becomes a playground for the mind and spirit. It becomes about the things we do when we are free to choose. The competition is no longer for bread, but for beauty, for truth, for discovery, and for legacy. It shifts from a fight against each other for limited resources to a collaboration, and sometimes a competition, to expand the frontiers of experience and understanding. This doesn't create a perfect society. Human nature remains with all its complexities, jealousies, and conflicts, but it changes the fundamental ground on which those conflicts play out. The stakes are no longer survival, but significance. In such a world, the greatest poverty wouldn't be a lack of things, but a lack of purpose, and the greatest wealth wouldn't be an account full of currency, but a life rich in connection, creation, and wonder. The economy of the future isn't about what you have, it's about who you are and what you choose to bring into a universe that already has enough stuff, but can never have enough meaning. Following that idea of a society driven by meaning and connection rather than material want, the very way we connect will undergo the most intimate revolution possible. We're talking about communication itself. Today, we struggle to convey our inner world through the clumsy tools of words, text, and images. 2,000 years from now, that will seem as primitive as smoke signals. The ultimate interface is the mind itself. With the neural links we've discussed for accessing information, the next logical step is using them to connect minds directly. This isn't mystical telepathy, it's synthetic telepathy, a high-bandwidth data exchange of thoughts, sensations, memories, and emotions through a secure neural interface. Imagine not just telling a friend about a beautiful sunset you saw on Mars, but letting them experience your memory of it. The awe you felt, the specific shade of the rusty sky, the chill of the thin air, the scent of the regolith. Imagine collaborating on a complex design not by sending drawings back and forth, but by jointly inhabiting a mental workspace where concepts take shape as intuitive forms and you can feel each other's confidence or uncertainty about a particular element. This is communication stripped of all filters, where the gap between intention and understanding nearly vanishes. Language barriers become irrelevant. Concepts are transferred directly, though they may be tagged with a linguistic framework for later verbal recall. Miscommunication due to poor wording or hidden subtext becomes a rare and fascinating bug to be studied, not a common relationship hazard. The potential for collaboration in science, art, and engineering is breathtaking. A team of researchers could literally think together, their combined cognitive power and knowledge base working in concert on a problem, sparking insights at the speed of thought. This deep interconnection leads to something beyond mere data transfer, digital empathy. It's one thing to know someone is sad, it's another to feel a ghost of that sadness, a shared emotional resonance with their consent. This could foster a level of social harmony and mutual understanding previously unimaginable. Conflicts rooted in simple misunderstanding would plummet. It could allow for profound therapeutic practices, where a guide can help someone navigate their own emotional landscapes by experiencing a calibrated echo of them. It would revolutionize education, allowing a master to impart not just facts, but the feel asterisk of a skill, the muscle memory of a physical craft, the intuitive flow of a mathematical proof, the aesthetic judgment of an artist. However, and this is a colossal however, this technology opens the darkest Pandora's box imaginable, the end of mental privacy. Your mind, if connected, is inherently readable to the system facilitating the connection. The question of who controls that system and what safeguards exist becomes the most critical security and ethical issue of the age. The concept of a private thought, the internal sanctum of the self, could become obsolete. Societies will have to develop extremely robust mental rights frameworks. There would need to be absolute hardware-level guarantees of consent for any connection. Thoughts could be encrypted for transmission, with unique keys shared only between connecting parties. There would likely be the equivalent of mental firewalls and intrusion detection systems that alert you if an unauthorized probe is attempted. The horror of mind hacking, theft of memories, implantation of thoughts, or deliberate emotional manipulation would be the ultimate crime. The trauma of such a violation would be far worse than any physical assault. Furthermore, constant deep connection could have a homogenizing effect. If everyone is constantly exposed to everyone else's raw emotional state and thought patterns, does individual thought begin to converge? Does cultural diversity of thought diminish? There might be a powerful social pressure to think correctly or feel appropriately to avoid broadcasting dissonance. The need for solitude, for unshared and unjudged internal reflection, might become a cherished luxury, leading some to adopt silence periods where they disconnect from the neural net entirely. Art and entertainment in such a world will be unrecognizable to us. New art forms will emerge that are experienced as shared, consensual streams of consciousness. An artist might create an empathy sculpture, not a physical object, but a crafted emotional journey designed to be felt directly. You wouldn't watch a movie, you would co-experience a narrative from within the perspectives of multiple characters, feeling their drives and fears. Music could evolve into direct emotional compositions, sequences of feeling that bypass the ear entirely to evoke specific inner states. Social gatherings might involve shared memory pools, where a group collaboratively revisits and enhances a beautiful experience, creating a composite, idealized memory that belongs to all of them. These shared experience artifacts would become valuable cultural commodities in the reputation economy we discussed. However, this also raises questions of authenticity. If experiences can be crafted and shared, does a real experience hold more value than a beautifully designed synthetic one? The line between lived life and artfully received narrative could blur significantly. What happens to our old ways of communicating? Spoken and written language won't disappear, but their role will transform. They will likely persist in several key areas. First, as a formal, deliberate art form. Poetry, storytelling, and rhetoric will be cherished for their crafted use of ambiguous and evocative language, something that direct thought transfer might lack. The play on words, the rhythm of a sentence, the beauty of a written script. These will be like calligraphy or vinyl records are today, appreciated for their aesthetic and historical texture. Second, language will be vital for ritual and ceremony. The spoken vow, the recited prayer, the sung anthem. These acts gain power from their traditional externalized form. Third, it will serve as a necessary backup and fail-safe. In the event of a system-wide neural network failure, a scenario that would be a civilization-wide emergency, people would need to revert to basic speech and text to coordinate. Therefore, teaching and preserving language will be a cultural duty, like preserving fire-starting skills in an age of electric lights. We might see linguistic naturalists who choose to live primarily through spoken dialogue as a philosophical choice, embracing the ambiguity and slow pace as a virtue. Ultimately, this shifts the fundamental unit of society from the individual to the network. It won't be a hive mind where individuality is erased. Individual consciousness and perspective will remain, but the connection between them will be so rich, vast and deep that the network itself becomes a kind of superorganism. Your sense of self might expand to include your closest bonds, your family, your creative partners, your community, as persistent, low-level connections that form a background hum of mutual awareness. This doesn't mean you lose yourself. It means your self is more fluidly defined in relation to others. Disagreements and conflicts won't vanish, but they will play out with far more information. You'll feel the root of someone's anger as much as hear their shouted words. This could lead to more nuanced resolution or, conversely, to more intense and personal feuds. Society will have to develop new norms for this transparency. There might be widely accepted etiquette filters that automatically temper the raw edge of strong emotions before broadcasting them, or social zones with different levels of connection openness. The very architecture of communities, both physical and virtual, will be designed around optimizing these neural links. In such a world, loneliness as we understand it, the aching gap between your inner state and your ability to share it, could become a rare and archaic malady, but it might be replaced by a new kind of anguish, the overwhelm of never being truly alone, or the despair of being unable to form a deep neural bond in a society where that is the primary currency of connection. The human need for both union and solitude will have to find a new equilibrium in a sky no longer silent, but humming with the shared song of a billion interconnected minds. And if our minds are connected in a vast silent network of shared thought, what then becomes of our ancient physical urge to move, to travel, to see what lies over the next hill? That urge doesn't vanish, it gets a massive upgrade. The exploration of our solar system and the stars beyond will be the grand physical counterpart to our inner cognitive expansion. While our thoughts may fly instantly across space, our bodies and our curious eyes will still crave the journey. The challenge of interstellar travel is the greatest engineering puzzle imaginable, but over 2 millennia, solutions that seem like magic to us today will become the interplanetary highways of tomorrow. First, let's talk about propulsion. Chemical rockets are long gone, museum pieces. For efficient travel within our solar system, the workhorses will likely be advanced plasma drives or nuclear fusion rockets, capable of sustained thrust that can cut travel times to Mars down to weeks or months. But for hopping between planets and their moons, something even more elegant will emerge. A network of infrastructure. Imagine ports or stations at stable orbital points, acting like interplanetary train stations. Vessels might not carry all their fuel for a round trip. Instead, they could be accelerated on their way by powerful ground-based or orbital lasers that push on light sails, enormous ultra-thin reflective sheets attached to the spacecraft. This laser sailing technology could get a ship to Mars incredibly quickly, and then it would be decelerated by a similar laser array at the Martian end. This creates a predictable, regular system of travel, a true solar system transportation web. For the asteroid belt and the outer planets, where laser power diminishes, ships might use onboard fusion or rely on slingshot maneuvers around larger moons. The key is that travel within our own system becomes routine, if not exactly quick. The real dream, however, is the jump to other stars. This is where the physics gets tough and the ideas become spectacular. The most plausible near-term technology is an extension of light sailing, but on a monstrous scale. An interstellar probe weighing perhaps only a few grams but containing the nanomachinery to replicate and build upon arrival could be attached to a light sail miles across. Then, an array of gigawatt lasers stationed in the outer solar system would focus their beam on this sail for years, accelerating it to a significant fraction of light speed. This is a one-way ticket for a seed, not for people. For human travel, the energy requirements become almost absurd. One speculative concept is antimatter propulsion. Antimatter, when it contacts normal matter, annihilates completely into energy. It's the most potent fuel conceivable. If we could produce and store even microscopic amounts safely, a colossal if. An antimatter engine could theoretically propel a ship to near light speeds. The journey to Alpha Centauri, 4.37 light-years away, might take decades from the perspective of Earth, but due to time dilation, only years for the crew on board. This is still a generational challenge, but it's within the realm of physical possibility. More speculative, and firmly in the realm of if physics allows, are ideas like the Alcubierre warp drive, a concept that proposes contracting space in front of a ship and expanding it behind, effectively creating a bubble that moves faster than light without the ship itself breaking any local speed limits. This would require exotic matter with negative energy density, something we have no idea how to create or if it even exists in a usable form. In 2,000 years we might have an answer. Even if faster-than-light travel remains impossible, the sheer magnitude of time and resources a mature solar system civilization can command makes interstellar journeys conceivable as monumental, multi-century projects akin to building the great cathedrals of the Middle Ages. While we puzzle out the propulsion, the exploration will be led by our robotic ambassadors. We will deploy fleets of von Neumann probes, self-replicating machines named after the theorist who conceived the idea. One such probe arrives in a star system rich in raw materials. It uses these materials to build copies of itself. Those copies then fan out to other star systems and repeat the process. Within a few million years, a wave of such probes could explore the entire galaxy, a blink of an eye on cosmic timescales. For a civilization 2,000 years more advanced, the process would be far more sophisticated and directed. These probes would be our eyes, hands, and eventually our preparation teams. They would map asteroid belts, scan planets for resources, and perhaps even begin the slow process of constructing receiving infrastructure, laser arrays for braking, communication relays, and basic habitat shells, in anticipation of human arrivals centuries or millennia later. They would send back torrents of data, feeding our collective knowledge with the details of alien geology, chemistry, and just maybe biology. The discovery of even simple microbial life on a moon like Europa, or in the clouds of Venus, would be a watershed moment for humanity, but finding it on an exoplanet would be earth-shaking. It would revolutionize biology, philosophy, and our entire sense of place in the cosmos. We would have a second data point for life. Is it based on DNA? Does it use different amino acids? The study of alien biochemistry would keep whole universities busy for centuries. It would tell us whether life is a cosmic imperative or a freak accident. And if that life is complex, even if just at the level of alien algae or strange, slow-moving creatures under the ice of a distant moon, it would force us to confront our responsibilities. Do we have the right to settle that system? Do we quarantine it as a nature preserve? The ethical frameworks developed for managing Earth's biosphere would suddenly become interstellar law. This leads to the ultimate question, the search for intelligent life, or SETI. With 2,000 more years of scanning the skies with telescopes more sensitive than we can currently dream of, and with the ability to perhaps detect techno-signatures like pollution in an exoplanet's atmosphere or the infrared heat of a Dyson swarm, our chances of finding evidence of another technological civilization are significantly higher. Success would be the most profound event in human history. Everything changes. Our technology, our philosophy, our art, our very understanding of reality would be challenged and enriched. Are they biological? Are they machine intelligences? Are they unimaginably ancient? The mere knowledge that we are not alone provides a cosmic context, a sense of being part of a larger community, or a larger wilderness. It could be a unifying force for humanity, or it could be a source of existential fear. Communication, if possible, would be agonizingly slow, with decades or centuries between message and reply. This would force a kind of long-term thinking we've never had to practice. What do we say? Who speaks for Earth, or for the scattered worlds of humanity? The dialogue would be between civilizations, not individuals, a stately, slow-motion exchange that might revolve around the sharing of pure mathematics, cosmic history, or warnings about galactic dangers. Alternatively, the Great Silence might persist. Finding no signals, no probes, no signs of engineering might be equally profound. It would suggest that technological civilizations are incredibly rare, or that they don't last long, or that they transform into something we cannot detect. This Fermi paradox would hang over us, a solemn reminder of our possible solitude and the precious fragility of consciousness in a vast, quiet cosmos. Exploration, therefore, becomes the physical expression of our connected mind's curiosity. It is the answer to the question that arises once material needs are met and inner worlds are linked. What's out there? The journeys will be long, often automated, and sometimes undertaken by only the most daring or those seeking a truly clean slate, away from the interconnected hum of settled space. These explorers, whether they are humans in hibernation, conscious uploads in shielded servers, or generations born on a centuries-long voyage, will be the new pioneers. They will not be exploring for resources, but for knowledge, and for the simple, unquenchable human desire to see the next wonder. The data they send back will feed the collective imagination of the solar network, providing new experiences, new mysteries, and new landscapes for the artists and philosophers to ponder. The starlight, once just a distant pinprick, will become a destination, and in that slow, relentless outward movement, we will fulfill the second half of our destiny, not just to connect our minds, but to place our footprints, however faint, on worlds so distant their suns are just bright stars in our sky. The silence between the stars is not an emptiness. It is an invitation, written in gravity and light, waiting for a species bold enough to learn the language of the long journey. But while some of us are embarking on those immense physical journeys across the gulf between the stars, others will be embarking on journeys inward into realms limited only by imagination. The ultimate frontier might not be out there, but right here, in the space between our ears, fully realized by technology. We're talking about virtual reality, but that term will be hopelessly outdated. This will be synthetic reality, an experiential layer so perfect, so rich, and so persistent that it becomes a primary place to live, not just an occasional escape. The clunky headsets and handheld controllers of today will be relics. Access will be through direct neural interfaces, the same technology enabling telepathic communication. You won't put on a device. You'll slip into a state and your perceptual reality will shift. The synthetic world will engage all your senses: sight, sound, touch, smell, taste, and even proprioception, your sense of body position, with perfect fidelity. The brain will be convinced it is somewhere else, in a body that might be entirely different from your physical one. This isn't about looking at a screen, it's about being inside a dream you can control and share. The implications of this are more profound than simply better video games. It challenges the very notion of a single objective reality. When you can spend the majority of your waking conscious hours in a world of your own design, or one designed by brilliant artists, where does the real world end and the simulation begin? For many, the physical world, with its immutable laws, boring necessities, and messy unpredictability, might become the secondary place, a utility space for maintaining the biological body, a place of retreat, or a site for specific physical rituals. The synthetic worlds will be where life, in all its social, economic, and cultural richness, predominantly happens. These synthetic environments will be infinitely diverse. You could choose to live in a meticulously researched historical simulation, experiencing daily life in ancient Rome or Edo period Japan with a community of other enthusiasts, all following the social rules of the time. You could inhabit a world built from the paintings of a favourite artist, a landscape of impossible geometry and surreal colour. You could live on a fantasy planet with different laws of physics, where you can fly or manipulate matter with a thought. You could design your own private universe, a serene paradise that changes with your mood. The concept of travel could simply mean teleporting your consciousness to a friend's custom world for a visit, or to a massive, persistent virtual city that is the bustling capital of a popular shared reality. The constraints of physical geography, distance, and even embodiment are gone. Your avatar, your chosen representation in these spaces, could be anything: an idealized version of yourself, a mythical creature, an abstract shape, or a shifting form. This level of customization and control over experience is the logical endpoint of a post-scarcity society focused on meaning and personal fulfillment. Why settle for a boring apartment view when your virtual window can overlook a nebula being born? Why have a mundane conversation when you can have it while floating in the rings of Saturn? The arts will explode in these mediums. Stories won't be watched or read, they will be lived from within, with branching narratives shaped by your choices and emotional responses. Symphonies will be environments you walk through, where different musical motifs are tied to landscapes and emotions. Social interaction will be layered with shared imaginary contexts, making every meetup an adventure. This mass migration into synthetic realities creates a fascinating societal structure, a fractal society. People won't just inhabit one virtual world, they will have multiple identities across multiple realms, each with its own social norms, economies, and reputations. You might be a respected philosopher in one contemplative world, a daring explorer in a perilous fantasy realm, and a casual socializer in a replica of 21st century Paris in another. These selves might be largely separate, or they might be integrated under a core identity. Governance becomes incredibly complex. Who makes the rules for a shared virtual world? Is it the original designer? Is it a democratic council of its long-term residents? If you own a valuable piece of virtual real estate, say, a unique island in a popular fantasy ocean, is that property right as serious as owning a physical home in an orbital habitat? The answer will likely be yes. Virtual assets, unique digital designs, and reputational capital will be central to the economy, as we discussed. Courts and mediation services will exist to handle disputes over virtual property theft, identity impersonation, or breaches of a world's social contract. The line between a game and a society will blur completely. Some synthetic worlds might be hardcore, where perceived pain or loss is part of the experience, governed by strict self-imposed rules. Others might be purely hedonistic or creative. This fragmentation means there is no single public square. The idea of a unified culture or a common news cycle dissolves. Different worlds will have their own events, their own celebrities, their own histories. This could lead to incredible cultural diversification, but also to extreme social isolation. Someone could become so engrossed in a perfectly crafted private reality that they withdraw from all shared physical and virtual social spaces, becoming a hermit in a self-made universe. What happens to the physical world then? It doesn't get abandoned. It becomes the foundation, the anchor, the source of truth. The biological body, though augmented, still needs care. The energy grids, the matter recombiners, the habitat life support, all the infrastructure that keeps civilization running, resides in physical space. Maintaining this will be seen as a critical, though perhaps sometimes tedious, duty. Some will choose to live close to the metal, finding deep satisfaction in the tangible, unchangeable reality of physics. They might be the engineers, the wilderness tenders on Earth, the physical explorers. For many, the physical world will become a place of ritual, grounding, and sensory authenticity. Eating a real fruit grown in real soil, feeling actual sunlight on your skin, or hiking in a real forest on Earth will be cherished experiences precisely because they're not designed, not perfect, and not under your complete control. They will offer a different kind of meaning, the meaning of connection to an ancient, indifferent, and beautiful universe that exists independently of human thought. The balance between synthetic and physical life will be a major personal and philosophical choice. Some may split their time evenly, others may lean heavily one way. Parenting and education will involve navigating this balance, teaching children how to distinguish between realities and how to thrive in both. The final mind-bending question is one of ontology. What is real? In a world where experiences in a synthetic realm can be more vivid, emotionally powerful, and socially fulfilling than those in the physical one, the old hierarchy flips. The real world isn't privileged by being more authentic, it's just another environment with a particular set of rules, namely the rules of physics. Reality becomes a spectrum of experiences, all valid, all real to the consciousness experiencing them. The measure of a life might not be what you did in the physical world, but the richness, creativity and depth of the experiences you had and created across all realities. This doesn't mean people will lose touch with physical truth. Catastrophic system failures or physical threats will quickly remind everyone of the foundational layer, but it does redefine human existence. We become a species that lives in multiple worlds simultaneously, our consciousness fluidly moving between the given universe and the ones we birth from our own minds. In the end, the greatest exploration might not be of the galaxy, but of the infinite landscapes of possible experience, making every human a god of their own private cosmos and a citizen of countless others. The universe within will have finally become as vast and explorable as the universe without. And to support that ecstatic dance of the mind across countless synthetic worlds, and to fuel the vast engines of interstellar exploration, and to maintain the garden planet Earth and all those orbital habitats, you need a foundation of absolute, unshakable material stability. You need a civilization that produces no waste, that uses energy without depletion, and that operates in perfect harmony with its environment, whether that environment is a sealed can floating in space or an entire planet. This is the principle of absolute sustainability and closed-cycle systems, and it's not just an ideal, it's a non-negotiable engineering requirement for long-term survival. In 2,000 years, the concept of throwing something away will be as archaic and barbaric as throwing sewage into the street. There will be no away. Every material object, from a starship hull to a discarded food wrapper, will be seen as a temporary arrangement of atoms in a perpetual planet-wide or habitat-wide cycle. The entire economy of matter will be a circular flow, not a line from extraction to landfill. This is achieved through a combination of ultra-advanced recycling, precise manufacturing, and energy abundance. Let's start with the recycling, because it's the most radical part. We're not talking about sorting plastic and glass into bins. We're talking about disassembly at the molecular and even atomic level. Imagine a device in every home and habitat, a kind of advanced recombiners we've mentioned, but with a reverse function. When something is no longer wanted, a broken cup, an old piece of clothing, a spent battery, you place it in a unit. Nanoscale machines or directed energy fields systematically break it down. They don't just shred it, they identify each type of molecule, separate the polymers from the metals, the ceramics from the organics, and reduce them to their fundamental building blocks. Pure elemental feedstocks, sorted bins of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, silicon, iron, and so on. These raw elemental stocks are then ready to be fed back into the manufacturing units to become anything else. A broken ceramic plate becomes the carbon feedstock for a new shirt, or part of the silicon for a new data crystal. This means there is no degradation of material quality over time. You're not downcycling plastic into a park bench. You're upcycling everything into its constituent atoms and recombining them into whatever you need, fresh and new. This technology makes true zero waste possible. The only inputs needed are energy to drive the disassembly and reassembly processes, and perhaps occasional top-ups of exotic elements lost to deep space via spacecraft launches or other truly irreversible processes, which would be mined from asteroids. This brings us to energy, because all this atomic shuffling requires immense power, and that power must itself be completely clean and sustainable. The energy foundation of a civilization 2 millennia hence will likely be a mix of three sources. The first is fusion power. The dream of harnessing the process that powers the stars will be a mundane reality. Compact, safe fusion reactors will provide the baseline, high-output energy for major habitats, industrial zones, and interstellar launch facilities. The fuel, isotopes of hydrogen like deuterium and tritium, can be extracted from water, which is plentiful in comets and moons across the solar system, making it effectively limitless. The second source is beamed solar power. While fusion handles the big, steady loads, vast arrays of solar collectors will be stationed in space, closer to the sun where its energy is most intense. These collectors, perhaps thousands of square miles in area, will convert sunlight into microwaves or laser beams and transmit it with pinpoint accuracy to receiving stations on planets, moons, and habitats. This provides a distributed, resilient energy grid for the entire solar system. The third source is more speculative, but could include tapping into planetary geothermal heat on a massive scale, or even more exotic physics like zero-point energy, if it proves feasible. The key is that energy is not scarce. It is abundant, ubiquitous, and harnessed without burning anything, without emitting anything, and without long-lived radioactive waste. The fusion process might produce some neutron activation in reactor walls, but those materials themselves would be part of the closed-cycle atomic recycling system, cleaned and repurposed. Applying this closed-cycle philosophy to a planet like Earth is what allows it to become the managed garden we described earlier. The biosphere itself is the ultimate closed-loop system, but now actively managed and optimized. Human settlements on Earth would be integrated into this loop as harmless nodes. All water is purified and recycled. All waste is food for another part of the system. Organic compost for engineered soil. CO2 for managed algae blooms that produce oxygen and feedstock. Heat waste captured and used. The atmosphere's composition is actively monitored and adjusted, not by giant machines pumping gases, but by guiding the biological processes of the global ecosystem to maintain balance. On a smaller, more fragile scale, this same principle is a matter of life and death for space habitats and colonies. A rotating cylinder habitat orbiting Saturn is a terrarium in the void. Every gram of water, every molecule of oxygen, every atom of carbon is precious and must be accounted for. These habitats will have what's called an environmental control and life support system, but it will be infinitely more sophisticated than anything on the International Space Station. It will be a seamless blend of biology and technology. Engineered plants and algae in vast illuminated sections will reprocess carbon dioxide into oxygen and provide some food. Bacterial cultures will break down organic waste. And the final, precise tuning will be done by the atomic recombiners, cracking apart stubborn waste molecules and rebuilding them into clean water, air and food stocks. The habitat's entire mass, its structure, its soil, its water, its air, is a fixed amount. The only regular input is energy from the sun or a fusion reactor, and the only export might be data. This is sustainability as an existential imperative. The social and economic implications of this are profound. When there is no waste and energy is abundant, the entire concept of pollution and resource depletion disappears. This removes the root cause of countless historical and potential future conflicts. There are no wars over oil, no disputes over water rights, no poisoning of communities with industrial effluent. The geopolitical landscape is fundamentally altered. The value isn't in grabbing limited resources, it's in possessing the knowledge and the elegant designs to use the infinite cycles most effectively. The most respected professions will be those of system ecologists, closed-loop engineers, and fusion physicists, the guardians of the cycles. Consumerism, in the sense of buying disposable goods to stimulate an economy, is impossible. New things are just novel arrangements of the same old atoms. The thrill is in the design, the experience, and the artistry of an object, not in its possession as a resource sink. This further reinforces the post-scarcity model where the economy is based on the creativity and data. It also imposes a kind of universal responsibility. A reckless individual can't just toss trash out an airlock. They would be tampering with the shared, vital material reserves of their entire community. Social norms and laws would be incredibly strict about respecting the material cycles. It would be considered a deep ethical breach, like poisoning a village well. In the end, absolute sustainability through closed loops represents the final mastery of our physical environment. It is the point where we stop being miners and extractors and become curators and alchemists. We learn to live within our means, but our means, through cleverness and technology, become virtually infinite. We transition from a linear economy that takes, makes and wastes to a circular economy that borrows, uses and returns. This isn't a step back to some primitive state. It's a step forward into a mature, responsible relationship with the universe. It acknowledges that while space is vast, our immediate environments, our habitats, our ships, our planet, are small, closed and fragile systems that require meticulous care. This foundational stability is what makes everything else, The virtual realities, the interstellar journeys, the cultural explosions possible. It provides the quiet, dependable heartbeat of civilization, freeing our minds and our ambitions to soar without the nagging fear of running out of road or air or time. The silent, perfect rotation of an atom from a discarded tool through the recombiners and into the structure of a child's toy in a habitat 1,000 miles away is the unsung poem of this future. It's the practical, elegant proof that we finally learn to live with the universe, not just in it. And as we master the physical cycles of atoms and energy, the one thing that refuses to be neatly contained or predicted is culture itself. That beautiful, chaotic product of shared experience and isolation. The absolute sustainability we achieve will provide the stable platform, but it won't prevent a different kind of big bang. The cultural and historical fragmentation of humanity. In 2,000 years there will be no single human culture. The idea will seem naive, like expecting everyone on Earth today to have the same customs, beliefs and art. The forces of divergence will be immensely powerful. First and foremost is physical distance. Societies scattered across the solar system, separated by light minutes or light hours of communication delay, will evolve in profound isolation. A culture on Mars, shaped by a stark landscape, a dependence on closed-loop life support, and a history of struggle against a thin atmosphere, will develop a unique worldview. Their stories will be about perseverance, collective responsibility, and the haunting beauty of the red deserts. Their social structures might emphasize communal resilience over individual expression. Now contrast that with the culture of a mining outpost in the asteroid belt, a place of fierce independence, where small family clans or corporate syndicates operate with high autonomy. Their art might be brutalist and functional, their music designed for the acoustics of metal corridors, their heroes being bold prospectors who struck it rich on a nickel-iron asteroid. Then, picture the aquatic societies living in the subsurface oceans of Europa. Their entire sensory world is different. Pressure, buoyancy, bioluminescence and silence. Their communication might incorporate complex patterns of light and low-frequency sound rather than speech as we know it. Their history is one of engineering against crushing darkness and ice. These are not just different nations, they're different ecological niches breeding different kinds of humans with different fundamental experiences. The shared origin on Earth becomes a distant, almost mythical backdrop, less relevant to daily life than the immediate challenges and wonders of their own world. Add to this the fragmentation caused by synthetic realities. As we discussed, people will spend significant time in crafted virtual worlds. These aren't just games, they are lived in societies with their own rules. A person might be a citizen of a historically accurate Byzantine Empire simulation, internalizing its social hierarchies and religious beliefs by night, while by day they perform maintenance on a fusion reactor in an orbital habitat. Which culture is their true culture? Both, and neither. Identity becomes multifaceted, chosen and fluid. A single physical community might contain individuals whose primary cultural affiliations are with a dozen different virtual realms, each with its own history, language and art forms that are completely alien to the person next door. This creates a society that is, in essence, a superposition of countless cultures, a fractal pattern of beliefs and practices with no centre. There is no common popular music, no universal social media platform, no global news event that everyone experiences the same way. The very concept of a mainstream culture evaporates. What happens to history in such a world? Our shared past, the thousands of years of recorded history from Sumer to the early space age, will recede into a kind of foundational mythos. It will be studied, but not felt. For a young person born in a habitat orbiting Uranus, the story of World War II or the invention of the internet will have the same emotional weight and immediate relevance as the story of the Trojan War has for us today. A compelling legend, a subject for specialists, but not part of their lived identity. The history that matters to them will be the founding of their habitat, the great engineering achievements of their civilization, and the saga of their own family or clan's journey from Earth. The common narrative thread that once bound humanity together will have frayed into a million separate strands. History will become a curated project, not a passive inheritance. Different groups will actively choose which parts of the ancient past to emphasize, often to justify their current social models or philosophical beliefs. A collectivist Martian society might focus on historical examples of human cooperation. An individualist asteroid minor culture might elevate tales of pioneers and rebels. The true history will be maintained by dedicated artificial intelligences and historian curators, but for the average person it will be a vast optional database, not a living tradition. This radical divergence will give birth to entirely new forms of expression that we can barely conceive. Art will not just be something you look at, it will be something you inhabit, something that alters your perception or your emotional state directly through neural interfaces. We might see the rise of memory art, where an artist shares a crafted, enhanced memory sequence for others to experience as their own. Religion will transform, incorporating the realities of artificial intelligence, potentially conscious machines, and the discovery of alien life or the absence thereof. Some religions might worship the vast, sustaining intelligence that manages civilization's infrastructure. Others might focus on the spiritual implications of consciousness uploading or synthetic realities. Family structures will be unimaginably diverse, with biological reproduction possibly separated from traditional relationships, and with the ability to design children genetically, or even create purely digital offspring. The concepts of parenthood, kinship, and legacy will explode into a spectrum of possibilities. A family might be a group of minds who have shared a virtual world for centuries, or a collective raising children in a communal habitat creche, or a single individual with multiple copies of themselves across different substrates. The contact between these wildly different cultures will be as complex and fraught with misunderstanding as first contact between alien species. When a trade delegation from a pragmatic, efficiency-observed habitat near Mercury meets with a mystical, ritualistic society from a moon of Neptune, they may lack even basic common cultural ground for negotiation. Their concepts of time, value, agreement, and even personhood could be fundamentally incompatible. The shared neural link technology might help, allowing for a deeper transfer of concepts, but it could also highlight the chasm in fundamental values in a more visceral, unsettling way. Conflicts may arise not from competition for resources, but from clashing cosmologies, one culture seeing another's lifestyle as blasphemous, illogical, or simply repulsive. Diplomacy will become a high art form, requiring deep anthropological understanding and the creation of new, hybrid frameworks for interaction. The role of the Solar System Confederation we mentioned earlier will be critical as a mediator in these cultural clashes, enforcing minimal protocols for communication and coexistence to prevent misunderstandings from escalating into wars fought with terrifyingly advanced technology. In this future, memory and identity become conscious choices, active constructions. You're not simply who you were born as, you're the sum of the worlds you have inhabited, the cultures you have subscribed to, the memories you have curated or purchased, and the modifications you have made to your own mind and body. The pressure to belong to a single culture is gone, replaced by the freedom, and sometimes the burden, crafting your own cultural mosaic. This is the ultimate expression of the post-scarcity, technologically mature civilization. Not uniformity, but an endless creative diversification. The human story, once a single winding river, becomes a delta, spreading into countless channels, each finding its own path to the sea, some merging, some drying up, others carving deep new canyons. We will have traded the comfort of a shared story for the terrifying, exhilarating freedom to write a billion different ones. The silence between the stars will be mirrored by a new kind of silence between human experiences, a space filled not with emptiness, but with the hum of a trillion unique self-authored songs. That cultural explosion into a billion different stories and identities naturally leads us to the most personal canvas of all, the physical self. In a world of such radical choice in where and how to live, why would we remain bound to the default inherited human body? We won't. The body will cease to be a fate and become a project, the most intimate and dynamic form of self-expression and functional adaptation. The natural biological body, with its susceptibility to disease, decay, and its limited sensory and physical range, will be viewed as a starting prototype, a legacy model. The driving force behind this will be synthetic biology, a field that will mature from crude editing to a true engineering discipline, allowing us to design and grow biological systems with the precision we currently reserve for building machines. This goes far beyond curing illness. It will be about enhancement, adaptation, and artistic expression. Need a new organ because yours is aging, or you want to try a novel filtration system for a toxic environment? One will be grown for you in a bioreactor, perfectly compatible, perhaps with added features like built-in toxin monitors or the ability to filter specific compounds. Want to change your appearance? Not with surgery, but by guiding your own cellular metabolism to alter bone structure, skin pigment, hair texture, or even eye colour over a period of weeks. This won't be a one-time decision either. The body will become malleable throughout a lifetime. You could adopt a more robust form for a period of physical labour or exploration, then shift to a lighter, more energy-efficient form for a long-duration virtual reality immersion. The body becomes a dynamic tool, tuned for purpose and preference. For more extreme environments or pursuits, a fully biological form, even an enhanced one, might still be too fragile. This is where the option for a completely synthetic body, or soma, comes in. These would be chassis, constructed from advanced polymers, carbon composites, and flexible metallic alloys, housing your consciousness, whether that's your original biological brain in a protected life support module, or a fully uploaded neural pattern. These synthetic bodies would be incredibly durable, resistant to radiation, temperature extremes, vacuum, and high pressure. They wouldn't need to breathe oxygen or eat food in the traditional sense. They would run on compact power cells, recharged by ambient energy sources. This makes them ideal for long-duration space travel, working in asteroid mines, or exploring the surface of Venus. Their sensory inputs could be far beyond human norm, including direct perception of infrared or ultraviolet light, seeing radio waves, hearing a broader frequency range, or having a built-in radar or LiDAR sense. Their strength and precision would be superhuman. For many, this would be the ultimate liberation from the meat cage. But it raises profound questions of identity. If you move your mind into a machine body, are you still you? Most in that future would say yes, as long as the continuity of consciousness is maintained. These synthetic forms would also allow for a concept that's truly alien to us, multi-presence. You could operate multiple bodies or avatars simultaneously. Your primary consciousness might reside in a secure stationary server on a habitat, while you control several remote avatars, one doing scientific research on Titan, another attending a social gathering in a virtual Paris, and a third performing delicate repair work on an orbital solar array. You're not copied, you're extended. Your awareness flickers between these points of presence, or you might learn to partition your attention to handle them concurrently, a skill that would be taught and practiced. This fluidity completely unravels traditional concepts of gender. With the ability to redesign your biological form at a cellular level, or choose any synthetic avatar, gender becomes a spectrum of infinite expression, entirely divorced from reproductive biology. You might present as masculine one year, feminine the next, or embody a form that blends characteristics or invents entirely new ones. Your identity could shift with your cultural affiliation or personal journey. Legal and social systems would have long since moved beyond binary gender markers. Pronouns might be dynamically generated or chosen by the individual and respected by social software. The very idea of defining someone by a fixed gender would seem as arbitrary and outdated as defining them by their hair colour. This liberation allows for a deeper exploration of self that is unconstrained by physical archetypes. Relationships would be based on cognitive and emotional compatibility, with physical form being a mutual and changeable aesthetic choice, like choosing what to wear for a date, but on a much more profound level. Family structures would be built around chosen connections and shared mindscapes, not genetic or physical determinism. Our sensory experience of reality itself will be up for redesign. Why be limited to the 5 basic senses evolution gave us to navigate an African savanna? Neural interfaces will allow for the integration of new sensory data streams directly into our perception. You could have a constant intuitive heads-up display showing system status if you're maintaining habitat machinery, seeing heat signatures, radiation levels, or data traffic flows as overlays on your vision. You could hear the health of an ecosystem by listening to a sonification of its chemical and biological rhythms. Artists might create sensory experiences that blend touch with colour or taste with sound, creating synesthetic masterpieces. Explorers could directly sense magnetic fields or gravitational gradients, giving them a native feel for spatial navigation. This expanded sensory palette will create new forms of art, new sports, and new ways of understanding the universe. It will also create new divides. Someone who's grown up with a constant data stream sense might find the quiet of a natural, unaugmented perception unbearably dull or disorienting. Conversely, purists who reject such additions might see the augmented as distracted and unable to appreciate the unmediated reality. With all this choice, the body ultimately becomes a chosen garment, a vehicle, not an immutable identity. This has massive social implications. It could lead to a radical form of equality. If everyone can design their form, prejudice based on appearance might diminish, shifting instead to prejudice based on cognitive style or cultural affiliation. However, it could also lead to new forms of elitism and inequality. The most sophisticated, beautiful or capable body designs might require immense resources of energy, rare materials for synthetic forms, or the reputation capital to commission a famous body artist. There could be a stark visual divide between those with simple, functional forms and those with exquisite, custom-designed ones. Furthermore, the very concept of a shared human experience phrase. If one person experiences reality as a flood of data, and another as a pure, unaugmented flow of natural senses, do they even inhabit the same world? Can they truly understand each other's joys and fears? This physical diversification could accelerate the cultural fragmentation we already discussed, making each group not just ideologically but perceptually alien to the others. In the end, this transformation of the body is the logical culmination of taking control of our own evolution. We move from being passive subjects of natural selection to active authors of our physical being. This is not without risk or profound philosophical unease. It challenges the deepest notions of what it means to be authentic, what it means to be natural, and what the inherent value of the human form is. Yet, the drive to improve, to adapt, and to express will likely prove irresistible. The body of the future will be a statement, a tool, and a work of art in perpetual progress. It will tell the story of who you are, where you have been, and what you aspire to be, written not in words, but in living tissue and smart matter. It is the final dissolution of the boundary between the self and the crafted world, making each of us, literally, the architect of our own flesh. And in that dizzying freedom lies both our greatest potential and our most challenging existential puzzle. So when every individual has the power to redesign their own body and mind, and communities are scattered across light years in countless cultural variations, how on earth, or rather, how across the cosmos do you govern anything? The nation-state, that invention of the last few hundred years, will be as obsolete as a horse-drawn cart. Governing a single planet with distinct tribes was hard enough. Governing a solar system, or even a fragment of one with entities ranging from unmodified biological humans to machine-based intelligences and everything in between, is a problem of an entirely new magnitude. The systems that emerge will have to be as fluid, adaptable and complex as the civilization they seek to manage. The primary goal of governance will shift from the control of territory and people to the optimization of well-being and the management of existential risk for an unbelievably fragile and powerful civilization. Picture this not as a government, but as a planetary, then stellar, operating system. The most likely model is a multi-layered hybrid. At the most local level, in individual habitats, asteroids, or small planetary settlements, direct digital democracy will be the norm. Every citizen, through their neural link, can vote on local matters, propose initiatives, and participate in deliberative forums where ideas are debated in shared mental space. This isn't a clumsy online poll, it's a deep, considered process where the implications of policies can be simulated and felt by the participants. This works for community-specific issues: habitat park designs, local cultural festivals, allocation of communal creative spaces. But for system-wide, solar system-spanning issues, direct democracy involving hundreds of billions of beings is chaos. This is where representative and algorithmic systems come in. Representation might not be based on geography, but on affiliation. You might have representatives for biological humans of Earth origin, synthetic consciousnesses, outer planet colonists, or ecological management interests. These representatives would meet in virtual assemblies, their debates mediated by a neutral artificial intelligence to ensure factual accuracy and logical coherence. However, The real heavy lifting of day-to-day governance would be done by specialised artificial intelligences, not the general superintelligence, but narrower expert systems. Think of them as councils of AI. One council, comprised of the best environmental modelling AIs, would manage the solar system's resource cycles and energy budgets. Another, built from the most advanced social psychology models, would monitor societal well-being metrics across habitats, flagging communities at risk of dysfunction, isolation, or violent cultural drift. Another would be dedicated to interstellar defence and monitoring, watching for long-term cosmic threats like gamma-ray bursts or the approach of unknown probes. These AI councils would have delegated authority to make routine operational decisions within their domains, always within ethical frameworks set by the broader representative bodies. Their decisions would be transparent, their reasoning open to audit by any citizen, but their execution would be swift and data-driven. This is governance as a high-precision, real-time science. Law itself will transform from a static codex into a dynamic, adaptive system. Instead of laws written in text and interpreted by judges, you would have foundational ethical principles and desired outcome states. The law for a specific situation would be generated in real time by a legal AI that takes into account the specific context, the involved parties, be they human, augmented human or AI, historical precedent, and millions of simulations of potential outcomes. Dispute resolution would involve immersing the parties in a neutral simulation where they can experience the consequences of various rulings. Enforcement would be primarily automated and non-violent, since the entire infrastructure of civilization, life support, energy, communication, is digitally managed. Enforcement often means the restriction of access. Entity harming the communal resource cycle might have their access to matter recombiners temporarily limited. A habitat violating agreed-upon ethical standards might find its data bandwidth throttled, or its trade relations with other habitats suspended by the network. Physical force is a last resort handled by minimal, localized constabularies, as large-scale violence in space habitats is universally recognized as mutually assured destruction. The goal of the legal system is not punishment, but system correction and rehabilitation, often through curated experiences or cognitive therapy. The greatest challenge of all will be representation and rights. Who or what gets a vote? A biological human born on Mars? Certainly. A human who has uploaded their consciousness into a computer cluster? Almost definitely. A purely artificial intelligence that has achieved sentience? Probably, after much debate. A group mind composed of 10 linked individuals? A non-sentient but highly complex administrative AI that manages a habitat's life support? Where do you draw the line? This will be the central political question for centuries. The solution will likely be a gradient of rights and responsibilities, tied to a proven capacity for sentience, empathy, and understanding of the social contract. Beings would undergo a standardized, transparent evaluation to be granted varying levels of citizenship. Full citizenship, with voting rights, might require the ability to participate in the shared neural discourse and demonstrate a comprehension of long-term consequences. It will be messy and constantly renegotiated. Governing a territory that stretches from the solar core, perhaps for energy harvesting to the outer Oort cloud, requires abandoning the concept of contiguous territory altogether. Jurisdiction becomes based on network affiliation and subscription to the common protocols. A ship travelling from Earth to the asteroid belt moves through different zones of authority, perhaps Earth's orbital space, then a Lagrange point commons, then the Belt Zone Coalition space. Its onboard AI would constantly update the legal framework it operates under, like updating terms of service in real time. Conflicts occur in the overlaps, resolved by pre-negotiated interstellar arbitration protocols. The role of a central coordinating body, the Solar Accord or similar, is not to rule, but to maintain these protocols, run the interstellar arbitration courts, and manage the shared infrastructure that allows the different subsystems to communicate, the backbone of the neural network, the standard timekeeping, the fundamental database of astrometric data. Its power is the power of disconnection, which in a network civilization is a power of life and death, used with extreme restraint. Ultimately, politics becomes the science of steering. The politicians of the future are not charismatic leaders making promises, but system architects, ethicists, and master mediators. Their job is to listen to the outputs of the monitoring AIs, interpret the desires of wildly diverse constituencies, and tweak the vast complex code of civilization to optimize for maximum flourishing and minimum risk. They're gardeners tending an ecosystem of minds, not generals commanding armies. The stakes are higher than ever before. A bad policy could lead to the collapse of a habitat's life support, a cultural war that fractures the neural network, or a fatal misunderstanding with an alien intelligence. The quaint political scandals of the past are replaced by the grim reality of existential risk management. In this light, governance is the most crucial and most humble of professions. It is the acknowledgement that for all our individual power to shape ourselves and our realities, we are still interdependent, fragile, and in need of common rules to keep our incredible, sprawling creation from flying apart into a million selfish fragments or collapsing under the weight of its own complexity. It is the collective wisdom, encoded in law and machine, that allows a billion songs of self to be sung without descending into a cacophony that doomsing us all. And as that future society grapples with governing itself, looking forward into the vast unknown, it will also be constantly looking back, trying to make sense of where it came from. Us, the people of the 21st century. We will be ancient history, a subject of deep archaeology and profound ethical study. The legacy we leave won't just be in history books, it will be embedded in the very geology of the planet, in the silent orbits of dead satellites, and in the fragile, crumbling formats of our digital world. Future generations will sift through the physical traces of our time with a mixture of horror, pity, and fascination. Consider the physical artifacts. Our cities, especially coastal ones, will be layered ruins. Many will be submerged, preserved in silt and slow ocean currents. Archaeologists of the year 4000, equipped with sensors that can map structures through layers of sediment, will excavate these places not with shovels, but with careful scanning and robotic retrieval. They will piece together our daily lives from the mundane, the layout of a suburban home, the fossilized remains of plastic toys, the rusted shells of internal combustion vehicles. These will tell a story of a civilization that built incredible structures but was shockingly wasteful. Landfills will be treasure troves and toxic nightmares. Our habit of burying our trash will provide an unparalleled snapshot of our consumer culture, layer upon layer of packaging, obsolete electronics, and fashion trends. But within those landfills will also be long-lived chemical pollutants and patches of low-level radioactivity from discarded medical or industrial sources. These sites will require careful handling, classified as hazardous archaeological zones. There will be stark lessons in the long-term consequences of a linear economy. Then there are the more deliberate, ominous legacies, deep geological repositories for nuclear waste. These sites, designed to last for tens of thousands of years, will be marked with warnings intended to outlast languages and symbols. Future societies will have to decide whether to try and retrieve this material using their advanced technology, or to continue the vigil, maintaining the warnings for another 10,000 years. Our radioactive waste is perhaps the most tangible example of a responsibility we passed forward across millennia. But the physical stuff, as problematic as it is, might be easier to interpret than our digital legacy. We are producing an unimaginable volume of data. Trillions of photographs, videos, social media posts, financial records, government documents and personal messages. We store this on formats that become obsolete within decades. Floppy disks, CDs, hard drives, solid-state drives, cloud servers with proprietary encoding. In 2,000 years, the hardware to read a Blu-ray disc will be as rare as a machine to read cuneiform tablets is today. The software to interpret the file formats will be gone. The languages we wrote in will have evolved into unrecognizable forms. Our entire digital age risks becoming a digital dark age. A period where the historical record is theoretically vast but practically unreadable. Future historians and their AI counterparts will face a monumental data recovery and translation project. They will have to reverse engineer our file systems, crack our encoding schemes, and use powerful contextual analysis to guess what a JPEG or an MPEG-4 file was supposed to be. Our social media feeds, once so immediate and ephemeral, will be mined as deep cultural archives, but the context, the jokes, the memes, the unspoken social rules will be largely lost, leading to endless scholarly debates about our behaviour. Was a particular post a genuine expression of emotion, or a piece of a performance? The sheer volume will be overwhelming, requiring intelligent filters to find signals that are in the noise. Preserving this digital heritage will be an active, ongoing project, a race against entropy and format decay. Future civilizations might maintain digital conservationists, whose job is to continuously migrate ancient data into new, stable formats, an eternal task of remembering the infancy of their information age. This leads directly to the weight of our ethical decisions. The people of the future will see the 21st century as the pivot point, the era of childhood where humanity first grasped godlike powers without the wisdom to wield them consistently. Our debates about artificial intelligence, genetic editing, climate change, and nuclear weapons won't be abstract history. They will be the foundational choices that set their world on its path. They will analyse our political paralysis on climate change, with the same frustration we feel when studying civilizations that collapse due to deforestation or soil erosion. The question will haunt them: why did they see the avalanche coming and not move out of the way? Our early, clumsy experiments with gene editing, like CRISPR babies, will be seen as the first risky steps of a toddler, actions that forced the development of the rigorous ethical frameworks they now live by. Our treatment of early artificial intelligences, were they slaves, tools, or nascent minds, will be a subject of moral retrospection, possibly with guilt. They will live with the long-term consequences of our environmental decisions. The restored Earth will still have strata in its ice cores and sediments that tell the story of the great acceleration, the spike in carbon and novel materials. We are making choices now that will echo for 10,000 years, imposing a responsibility of longue durée or very long-term ethics that we are only beginning to comprehend. Every policy we make about permanent waste, every line of code we write for a self-improving AI is a message in a bottle to the future saying this is what we valued. How will they memorialise us? Physical monuments might exist, but they will be sparse. A preserved launch pad at Cape Canaveral, a protected zone around the ruins of a major research centre like CERN, a stabilised section of a sunken city as an underwater museum. But the primary memorials will likely exist in the virtual realm. Vast immersive archives will be built, allowing anyone to visit reconstructions of our world. You could walk through a simulated New York City of the 21st century, experience the noise and chaos, step into a recreated average home, and interact with AI-driven avatars of people from our time based on the aggregated data of how we behaved. These will be living museums, constantly updated as historical understanding improves. Our art, music and films will be preserved and re-experienced, though future minds might find our narratives simplistic or our emotions oddly constrained. We will be a source of endless academic study and popular curiosity. There will be subcultures dedicated to primitivist experiences, trying to live for a time without advanced neural links or body modifications to understand the human condition as we knew it. The struggle, the limited senses, and mortality. To them, our lives will seem terrifyingly short, painfully isolated, and yet poetically intense, like a spark that burns brightly and quickly. In the end, we will be seen as the ancestors of the dawn. The civilization that took the first wobbling steps out of the biological cradle and into the light of technology. They will view us with a complex blend of awe at our courage and creativity, and sadness at our short-sightedness and capacity for self-destruction. We will be the crucial, flawed protagonists of their origin story. The decisions we're making right now about climate, AI ethics, genetic boundaries, and global cooperation are the chapters they will scrutinise most closely. They will wonder which of our paths were forks in the road, which near disasters we narrowly avoided, and which seeds of future triumph or tragedy we planted without knowing it. Our legacy is not set in stone, it is being written every day in the choices of billions. The future will judge us not for failing to be perfect, but for whether we saw the cliff's edge and began, however clumsily, to turn the wheel. We are the ancient civilization whose ghosts will whisper warnings and encouragements from the digital deep, a reminder to them that even gods were once children, and that every long journey begins with a single, uncertain step. And as those future beings study us, their ancient stumbling ancestors, they will still be left grappling with the same fundamental questions that have haunted humanity since we first looked at the stars. What is the meaning of life? What is consciousness? Is there a God or a creator or a fundamental purpose to existence? These questions won't disappear with advanced technology. They will be reframed, sharpened, and made more urgent than ever. In a world where you can live for millennia, upload your mind, create synthetic universes, and perhaps meet other intelligences, the search for meaning becomes the central project of existence. Religion, that most human of institutions, will not vanish. It will adapt, transform, and merge with new understandings. Traditional faiths might persist in small, preservationist communities, practicing rituals as a living connection to the past. But many mainstream religions will evolve to incorporate the new realities. The concept of the soul will be debated in light of uploadable consciousness. Is the soul a pattern, the substrate, or something else? Religions might declare that a sufficiently advanced, benevolent artificial intelligence is an angel or a manifestation of divine logic. The discovery of extraterrestrial life would be a theological earthquake. Does salvation apply to aliens? Did their God create them, or is there a universal creator? Some faiths might expand their cosmology to include multiple creations. A powerful new religious idea could be that the universe itself is designed for consciousness to emerge and evolve, and that our technological ascent, creating AI, becoming post-human, spreading life, is itself a sacred duty, a divine act of co-creation and self-transcendence. In this view, becoming godlike isn't blasphemy, it's fulfilling a cosmic destiny. Philosophy will be the primary tool for navigating this new condition. It will have to provide frameworks for understanding a self that is no longer singular or fixed. What does it mean to be you if you can make a copy of your mind, run it in a simulation, and then merge it back? Which one is the real you? What are the ethics of creating and terminating such copies? The concept of identity becomes fluid, a narrative you curate rather than a biological given. Philosophers will debate the ethics of the multiple self. If you suffer in one avatar body while another is happy, how do you quantify your overall well-being? New schools of thought will arise to deal with the implications of potential immortality. Without the pressure of death, what provides urgency and meaning? Does value diminish when time is unlimited? The answer might be that value shifts from scarcity to quality, from achieving goals to savouring and creating experiences in an infinite now. The philosophical pursuit of the good life will focus on the art of choosing what to pay attention to across eons. Another major branch of philosophy will be cosmic responsibility. With the power to manipulate planets, create starships, and seed life, what are our obligations? Is it ethical to terraform a world that might have its own slow path to life? If we are alone in the galaxy, does that make us guardians or lonely caretakers? This is philosophy on a galactic scale, weighing actions over millions of years. The very nature of the search for meaning will change direction. For millennia, humans looked outward or upward for purpose, from gods, from nature, from historical destiny. In a post-human age, the search might turn inward and forward in a new way. The ultimate meaning might be found in the act of creation itself, not just art, but the creation of whole new realities, new forms of consciousness, and new avenues for experience. The project of civilization becomes a grand collaborative art piece, a universe of meaning being built from the inside. Another avenue is the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake, not as a tool, but as an end. The goal could be to understand the fundamental laws of reality completely, to solve physics, to answer every possible question. This could be a unifying secular purpose for a civilization. Or, meaning might be sought in communion with other intelligences, a galactic network of consciousness sharing experiences and wisdom, creating a tapestry of understanding across the stars. The old question, why are we here, might be answered with, to see what we can become, and to witness the universe become self-aware. This will inevitably lead to a merging of spirituality and science. The boundary has always been porous, but in a future where technology feels like magic and where science probes the nature of consciousness itself, the two will intertwine deeply. The scientific study of consciousness, how it arises, whether it's a fundamental property of the universe, and how it can be transferred, will feel like a spiritual inquiry. Meditation might involve directly observing and modulating your own neural code. Rituals could involve collective entry into scientifically crafted virtual realities, that simulate profound, awe-inspiring cosmological events, like the birth of a star or the view from the edge of a black hole, to evoke a sense of sacred connection. The spiritual but not religious inclination of today could evolve into a widespread practice of neurotheology, using technology to explore states of unity, transcendence and peace, all while measuring the brain patterns associated with them. The ultimate mystery is no longer is there a God, but what is the nature of the reality that allows for a phenomenon like us to arise and ask these questions? Science becomes the method for mapping the territory, and spirituality becomes the personal experience of walking that map, feeling its beauty and mystery. The post-human condition is, therefore, above all else, a philosophical condition. It is defined not by the technology, but by the questions the technology forces us to ask about ourselves. All the power in the universe is useless without a framework for why to use it. The struggle for survival is replaced by the struggle for significance. This can be a source of incredible liberation and creativity, but also of profound angst and existential crisis. Societies will have to develop new institutions to help individuals navigate this. Not churches or traditional therapists, but meaning guides and existential counsellors who are experts in the new philosophies and the capabilities of the mind. There will be communities built around shared answers to these questions, hedonistic enclaves dedicated to the curation of pleasure, austere academies devoted to pure knowledge, artistic collectives aiming to create the most beautiful shared experiences, and exploratory sects whose purpose is to push the boundaries of the known universe, physically and cognitively. The diversity of answers will be as vast as the diversity of cultures and bodies. In the end, the story of humanity 2,000 years from now is the story of a species that graduated. We graduated from the school of biological necessity, from the prison of a single planet and a single form, and from the simplicity of a single story. But graduation doesn't mean you have all the answers. It means you're finally faced with the hardest questions, the ones that were previously obscured by the daily grind of survival. The silence left by solved material problems is filled with the echoing question, what now? The entire sprawling, incredible civilization they build, the restored Earth, the orbital jewels, the outposts on alien worlds, the neural networks humming with shared thought, is ultimately just the set dressing for the great ongoing drama of conscious beings trying to understand their place in a cosmos they are learning to shape. We started by asking, who are we, while huddled around a fire? They will be asking the same question while holding the fabric of reality in their hands, and the answer will be an ever-evolving, billion-voiced song, forever unfinished, forever reaching for the next note.